Welcome to this explainer, where we're hunting down one of the absolutely most beautiful and frankly unsettling mysteries left in all of science. Today, we're figuring out how memory is physically built from the raw, literal stuff of the universe. I mean, we use memory every single second of our waking lives, right? But we rarely stop to actually wonder how it works down at the atomic level.
Just think about it for a second. When you remember the exact taste of your favorite childhood meal, or the specific sound of a loved one's voice, where does that information actually go? That memory isn't just floating around in some abstract poetic cloud. It has to be written into physical matter. It's got to be encoded in atoms, in molecules, and in the wiring of trillions of connections. This really sets the stakes for our molecular detective story today. We know an enormous amount about the biological ingredients, but the finished recipe? Still one of science's greatest open mysteries.
Okay, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the physics of information, the ultimate memory paradox, some radical new brain theories, the brain's petabyte capacity, and finally, the truth about forgetting. Let's get right into it.
All right, starting us off with part 1, the physics of information. We really have to begin at the foundation of reality here. Back in the 1960s, a physicist named Rolf Landauer figured out something wild. Erasing a single bit of information, like forcing a memory system into a definite state, is a physical process that actually obeys thermodynamics. It costs real physical energy and releases a tiny amount of heat into the environment. What's absolutely crucial about this is it proves memory isn't just a ghost, it has physical weight. Any theory of memory has to grapple with these hard physical constraints.
And that brings us perfectly to part 2, the ultimate memory paradox.
This is perhaps the most unsettling biological problem in all of neuroscience, known as Crick's paradox. Francis Crick realized that a memory has to be recorded through physical modifications. But here's the catch. The epigenetic marks on our DNA and the proteins making up our brain cells, they turn over constantly. Some are replaced in mere hours or days. So how on earth can a memory of your wedding day last for 60 years when the very biological building blocks supposed to store it don't even last 60 hours? It's basically the ship of Theseus problem, but inside your head.
So, for decades, the reigning champion theory has pointed straight at our synapses. You've probably heard Donald Hebb's famous rule: cells that fire together, wire together. Basically, neuroscientists believe learning structurally strengthens the connections between neurons, a process called long-term potentiation. When a receiving neuron gets strongly activated, this molecular alarm bell goes off in the form of a massive calcium influx, which triggers biochemical cascades that physically grow the synapse. But, going back to our paradox, those structural proteins are still relentlessly destroyed and replaced. We absolutely need a stable molecular switch to make this work.
Which leaves us with this fierce, completely unresolved battle between two specific molecules, trying to outlast all that chemical noise. On one side, we've got KMKK. Think of it as a self-sustaining switch. It phosphorylates itself and its neighbors, preserving its active state even as old parts swap out. On the other side is PKM-zeta, which is famously missing its off switch entirely. It pairs up with a scaffolding protein called KIBRA to maintain memory indefinitely. The field is actually starting to suspect these two might tag team it, Like KMKK establishes the memory right at the start, and PKM-zeta locks it in over the long haul. Okay, moving right along to part 3, radical new brain theories. Because if synapses alone aren't the whole story, we need to interview some highly contested new suspects. Enter neuroscientist David Glanzman. He controversially argues that memories might actually live deeper down, right inside the cell nucleus, via epigenetic marks. In this striking 2018 experiment, his team trained sea slugs with mild electric shocks, extracted their RNA, and then injected it into totally naive, untrained slugs. And astoundingly, the untrained slugs began displaying the exact same trained defensive reflex. Now this is heavily debated. Some skeptics think it might just be a general immune response. But man, these experiments force us to genuinely ask if synaptic changes are just the downstream symptoms of a much deeper genetic memory. Now, we also have to talk about a massive historical blind spot. For over a century, neuroscience suffered from this deeply neurocentric framework, basically assuming neurons did all the heavy lifting while glial cells just acted as dumb background scaffolding. Well, that completely ignores a full 50% of the brain's composition, specifically the star-shaped cells known as astrocytes. And breakthrough research from 2024, 2025, and 2026 has completely shattered that old assumption. We now know astrocytes are intimately involved in what researchers are calling the astroengram. It turns out astrocytes actively and physically surround our synapses, and specific subsets of them get durably tagged during emotional events. Get this, artificially reactivating those tagged astrocytes alone can actually trigger memory recall. It's a real game changer. It fundamentally expands our understanding of where memory lives, showing us it's a dynamic, multicellular partnership.
All right, let's shift gears to part 4, the brain's petabyte capacity.
Let's look at the actual physics of this storage space. Researchers at the Salk Institute rigorously measured physical synapse sizes in the hippocampus, and they found that a single synapse can reliably exist in about 26 statistically distinguishable sizes. Using Shannon information theory, they calculated this is over 4 bits of information per synapse. When you multiply that out by our hundreds of trillions of synapses, the brain's total theoretical capacity comes out to roughly 1 petabyte. To put that into perspective, that staggering figure is comparable to conservative estimates of the entire World Wide Web.
This highlights a really profound architectural difference. Human-engineered systems, like magnetic hard drives or even futuristic DNA data storage, they're incredibly rigid and digital. They rely on strict binary zeros and ones, and they completely separate the memory storage from the active computing processor. But our biological brains, they're highly flexible, continuously graded analog systems. They tightly co-locate the storage and the computation right on top of each other in the exact same physical hardware.
And this continuous analog biology perfectly mirrors the physics of spin glasses, which is a concept describing disordered magnetic materials. The physicist John Hopfield actually borrowed this exact math to create the Hopfield network. Work so completely foundational, it just won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Physics. It flawlessly explains associative memory. Think of a physical system naturally rolling downhill into a stable energy valley. Your brain does the same thing. It can take an incomplete input, like just a tiny snippet of someone's voice, and effortlessly roll into the correct energy minimum, automatically completing the pattern so you instantly recall their whole face.
Which brings us to our final section, part 5, the truth about forgetting. For the better part of a century, the overwhelming scientific consensus was something called the storage deficit hypothesis. It was a pretty intuitive assumption, basically that amnesia meant the physical memory trace. The engram itself was wiped out or physically damaged. You know, exactly like a corrupted computer hard drive that irreversibly loses its files.
But then, Thomas Ryan's lab ran a totally groundbreaking experiment that flipped this entirely on its head. They permanently tagged specific engram cells in mice during initial learning. Then, they induced severe amnesia using a protein synthesis inhibitor. Naturally, the mice completely forgot the memory. But here is the massive plot twist. Using targeted optogenetic light, the researchers artificially reactivated those exact tagged cells, completely bypassing normal biological retrieval pathways. And incredibly, the supposedly lost memory instantly came right back. So what does this all mean? It leads to this revolutionary realization that forgetting is frequently just a broken access link rather than a destroyed file. The memory was physically sitting there in a silent, latent state in the tissue the entire time. This opens up literally massive therapeutic possibilities. It means that for traumatic brain injuries, or maybe even early stages of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, the core information might not actually be permanently erased. If we can just figure out how to fix those retrieval pathways, we might one day restore those inaccessible memories.
Now, to remain completely impartial, we do have to mention a highly contested minority position known as the quantum consciousness hypothesis, or ORC-R, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They suggest that hollow protein structures inside neurons, called microtubules, actually sustain quantum superposition states that give rise to memory and consciousness. However, the overwhelming majority of mainstream physicists and neuroscientists are intensely skeptical of this. The brain is warm, wet, and chemically noisy. It's a completely hostile environment for delicate quantum states, which usually undergo extremely rapid decoherence. So for now, classical physics remains the most heavily supported explanation.
And that brings us to the grand synthesis. Despite decades of Nobel-winning research across physics, biology, and computer science, the exact physical molecular blueprint of a single lasting memory is still one of modern science's absolute greatest open mysteries. We know the biological ingredients, the synapses, the astrocytes, the kinases, but science absolutely cannot yet provide the exact atom-by-atom final recipe for how a specific memory is perfectly preserved despite the relentless churning of our cellular machinery.
Which leaves us with one final incredibly profound question to ponder. Since nearly all of your physical atoms constantly replace themselves over the years through metabolic turnover, your persistence over time is this miraculous, ever-maintained informational pattern. Against overwhelming physical odds, a molecular dance inside your skull preserves the entire narrative arc of your life. So, what makes you the exact same continuous person you were 10 years ago? What actually preserves the story of you? It's a beautiful mystery and one we are getting closer to solving every single day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.